Strength for Runners, Cycle 1, Week 1, Session 3. For today's session, you're going to need the following equipment. You're going to need a mini looped resistance band, a long looped resistance band, a thin one, just like this. You're going to need a towel or a t-shirt or something, and then you're going to need a bench or a box or an end of your sofa, a chair, bed, anything like that, something that you can rest your heels on whilst then being able to lie on the floor as well, which obviously I'll go through more as we get to it. So you need those bits of equipment for today's session. We're going to have a look at drilling the A position, so looking at some marching and things like that alongside some hamstring strength and, like I said, a little bit of foot strength with some towel grabs. So kicking off with the warm-up, first thing we're going to do is some ankle mobility with the mini band. So you're going to take the band, place it around the ankles, and then if you need to, using a wall or a post or something like that, door frame for support, you're going to stagger your stance. You've got one foot in front of the other. Now both feet need to be pointing forwards. However, back foot doesn't really matter if the heel comes off the ground. The key is we're focusing on that front foot, so it's in a nice straight line and it stays flat on the floor throughout this movement. Then all we're going to do is drive that knee as far over the middle of the foot as we can, whilst keeping some resistance in the band with the back leg. So we're just rocking forward and back, getting that knee as far over the middle of the foot as we can. Make sure that as we do so, we keep equal pressure in the big toe and the little toe of the foot. So we're not letting the foot collapse inwards, or we're not excessively pushing into the outside of our foot as we do this. You're going to go for 15 per side on those. Then from there, you're going to go into your frog bridge. So for this one now, we're going to set ourselves up so that the bottoms of our feet are together. So we're sort of like knees pointing out to the sides. We're then going to come onto the back. Now for this one, ideally, we don't want our arms on the floor. So we're going to take our arms above our chest with our palms touching, pointing up to the ceiling. We're going to push the heels into the floor and lift the hips as high as they can go. Squeeze the glutes at the top and make sure that the hips don't rock from side to side. So hold that position for a second and then lower back down. So really squeeze the glutes, pause, back down. And again, we're going for 15 of those. Make sure we don't go too high with the hips like this so that we arch that lower back. So 15 reps on that one. Then from there, you're going to go into some half kneeling rotations. So for this one, starting position is on the knees. So we've got an upright torso, just like this. Then we're going to take one leg out to the side, so 90 degrees. So my hips pointing forward towards the camera, my other leg is pointing out at 90 degrees towards the wall at the side, with my knee and foot pointing that direction also. Ideally, we want to get that hip as open as we can. If you struggle with that mobility though, then obviously don't force it. Just go to a position that you can get that knee and toe just pointing in the same direction. So we don't want the knee pointing somewhere else compared to the toes. So get the hip as open as much as we can. Drop your other hand to the floor so that your weight is over that shoulder. And then you're going to reach under and then reach up to the sky. Make sure that this knee doesn't do this and cave inwards. So keeping it stacked above the ankle as we rotate up to the ceiling. Make sure all that movement comes from our upper back, not our lower back, hence locking those two positions in. And again, you're going to go for 15 per side on that. Then the last piece now, we're going to look at the hip hinge. So remember, this is about loading up the hamstrings and the glutes, but also getting a bit of mobility through them as well. So first thing you're going to do is start with a narrow stance, so hip width stance, okay? Then from there, you're going to soften your knees and you're going to allow your hips to hinge back as if you're closing the angle between your torso and your legs like a door hinge. So you can see I've just got a slight bend in the legs, my hips are going backwards, my chest is gently coming forwards, but not so much that I start to slouch like this. And you can see I've got a nice straight back, and then we stand. If you find it easier, you might put the palms of your hands onto your thighs and think about sliding your hands down your legs as you go through this exercise. Keep going until your hands get just below your knees. If you've got decent mobility in your hamstrings, if you're a bit tighter, you may find that you can get your fingertips just over your kneecaps. The key is, as long as the hips keep moving backwards, it doesn't matter where your range of motion is at this time, just loading up those hamstrings. You may also find it a bit easier by using something as a reference to reach the hips back towards. So I could sit up in front of this post, soften the knees and try and touch the bum to the post. As I find that that's quite easy, I can come a little bit further forward and just find that point where I can get a decent range of motion, but still feeling like the hips are reaching back towards that object. And you're going to go for 15 reps on that as well. So banded ankle mobility, 15 per side, frog bridge for 15 reps, then into those half kneeling rotations for 15 per side, and then those hip hinges for 15 reps. All of that for 1 round to start off the session and finish off your warm-up, okay? Then moving on to the main session. First 2 movements we're going to look at are the banded hip extensions and some hamstring bridge isometric holds. So for the hip extensions now, we need that long looped resistance band, that thin one, okay? And you're going to set up by placing it either around the thumb like this or around the wrist, whichever one is more comfortable. All right, the key is it's going to be there as an anchor point for the band as you put it around the opposite foot, okay? So I'm going to show you, so you can see the leg easy. I'm going to put it around my left hand, so therefore the band is then going to go around my right foot, okay? I'm going to come into a quadruped stance, so from the hands and knees. So remember, we want hands under the shoulders, knees under the hips, and you can see the band is around the middle of my foot. Then all I'm going to do is keeping that hand locked in place as an anchor point. I'm just going to push my leg behind me. I'm not trying to lift it up to the ceiling like this. I'm focusing on pushing it straight back, keeping the torso nice and parallel to the floor and avoiding twisting my hips. Just get a little pause at the end of the movement, really feel the glute working and just reaching that leg back behind you, control back to the start, keeping that back flat and not overarching that lower back. Going to do all reps on one side first before then switching over to the other side, and you're going to go for 15 per side on those. Then from there you're going to come into your hamstring bridge isos. So like I said, for this one now you need a box or a step or a chair, something that's roughly about knee height. All right, doesn't matter if it's slightly above or slightly below, roughly, just so that you can put your feet on it and have a sort of decent bend in the legs whilst being able to rest onto the floor. So for this, where it's going to go now, I'm going to set up with my heels on the edge of that box or bench. Then I'm going to shift my hips back so that I've got only a slight bend in the legs. So you can see here I've got 90 degrees. I want a slightly bigger angle than that. So I'm going to shuffle back, keep shuffling back until there's just a slight bend in the legs like this. Then all I'm going to do from there is take one foot off and then push the other heel into the bench or your box to lift the hips so you can see my legs not locked out, and I'm just going to hold for 10 to 20 seconds, really focusing on feeling it in the hamstring, digging that heel in and the toes still pointing up to the ceiling. Hold for 10 to 20 seconds and then relax and obviously switch over to the other side. So again, we're not going so high with the hips that we feel it in our lower back. We're just focusing on feeling it all through the hamstring. So you shouldn't really feel it in the glutes either. If you do, you're too close to the bench with your hips, so just shuffle them back a little bit more so it's all just in the hamstrings. You might get a little bit in the calves depending on your mobility, okay? And you're going to go for, like I said, 10 to 20 second holds on that one, and we'll do 3 sets. So 15 per side on the hip extensions, 10 to 20 second hold per side on the hamstring bridge, 3 rounds with 30 to 60 second rest between rounds. Then your next 2 exercises, we're going to go on to some bodyweight marching and some towel grabs. So for this one now, bodyweight marching, obviously bodyweight as the name suggests. For your towel grabs, you need your towel, and you also need to strip down to barefoot if you haven't done so already. So no shoes, no socks, just so we can obviously get those feet working. So for the marching to start with, we're going to start off with a hip width stance, and we're going to focus on getting the knee up so the thigh is parallel with the foot hanging just below it. And we're also going to get in the arm drive, so where we're moving the arms almost like a sprinter. So we want, as we get to that end position, we've got a 90-degree bend here and also a 90-degree bend on that back arm. So think about, as the hand comes up, we're looking at the elbow almost pointing forwards. As we go backwards, we're looking at almost that hand pointing down towards the floor, but still keeping that 90 degrees and the elbow pointing behind. So it's this movement that we're trying to achieve as we go through that marching. It's really important that we get that, to get that forward arm travel rather than across the body, and sinking that in the brain with that knee drive, which is what we do every time that foot comes from behind and we go back into the next stride, okay? So it's literally on the spot marching, just focusing on opposite arm to opposite leg, really pushing that foot into the floor as you go through them. Get a little pause at the top, and you're gonna go for 15 per side on those. So 30 reps total, okay? Then from there into your towel grabs. So like I said, making sure you're already barefoot now by this point. Take your towel, lay it out, and then all you're going to do is set your foot so that the balls of the feet are on the towel along with the toes, midfoot and heel are on the ground. Now obviously ideally you want some sort of smooth surface to be able to do this on, so laminate floor, wood floor, something like that, because the towel will move a lot easier. However, if you're on something that's a little bit grippier like a rubber floor, it's not ideal, but you can still get the job done as long as you really focus on trying to curl the toes under and trying to pull the towel in, especially with that big toe, back towards the foot. So I'm going to grip it and pull it. Then I'm going to relax my foot, reach my toes out again, and do the same again. So I'm not lifting my foot any higher than just the balls of the feet coming just off the ground, and extending my foot out to the front and curling that towel in. As you can see, I'm pulling the towel inwards, scrunching it up all the way back towards my heel. So even though I'm on a rubber floor, you can still get the towel to move. The key is, as long as you feel a bit of resistance against your toes curling under and pulling that towel, you should feel the bottom of the foot working, then you're on the right track. And you're going to do that for 10 reps on one foot, re-straighten out the towel, 10 reps on the other foot. And again, you're going to do 3 rounds on this, so 15 per side on the bodyweight marching, then straight into 10 per side on the towel grabs, rest 30 to 60 seconds, and you're going to do 3 sets on that one. And that's that session. So any questions, as always, give me a shout, guys, and enjoy.